The warm days of spring 2026 arrived with a strange uneasiness. At first, it was just small things that people noticed. A few more lost dog posters than normal, reports of farm animals breaking through fences. But soon, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Wildlife rangers in Kenya watched in shock as lions and gazelles moved together across the savannah, not as predator and prey, but as travelers with a shared purpose. In India, jungle tigers abandoned their hunting grounds. Along the California coast, sea lions deserted their rocky homes while whales changed their migration routes, all moving in the same direction, away from something humans couldn't see or understand. People across the world woke to find their beloved pets gone. Doors somehow opened, windows pushed through. Zookeepers arrived at work to find empty cages. Despite locks and security systems working perfectly, the animals hadn't fought to escape. They simply left when no one was watching. "It's like they know something we don't," said Professor Lin Zhao at Beijing University as she reviewed satellite data showing mass movements of wildlife. These species have never coordinated like this. Some of these animals are natural enemies, yet they're traveling side by side. Social media filled with videos, deer and wolves passing through suburbs together, birds from different continents sharing the same flight paths, insects and rodents moving in waves through farmland. They didn't attack humans, they simply ignored them, driven by some urgent message humans couldn't hear. News channels tried to explain it as climate change or hidden environmental disasters, but the explanations fell flat. No natural event had ever caused behavior like this. Religious groups proclaimed it was the end times. Governments issued statements urging calm while secretly scrambling for answers. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Elena Reyes was unaware of the worldwide panic. For weeks, she'd been living aboard a research vessel, studying unusual seismic readings from the Mariana Trench. The ship's limited satellite connection meant news reached them in small, delayed bursts. Elena adjusted her glasses as she studied, the screen showing wave patterns from the ocean floor. Something was happening 11 kilometers down. Vibrations that didn't match earthquakes, volcanic activity, or human-made disturbances. They pulsed with an almost deliberate rhythm. "These readings can't be right," she told her research partner Raj. "It's like the deepest part of the Earth is talking." When they finally got through to their university lab, the connection was terrible. Elena could barely make out what her department head was saying through the static. "The animals, all of them, leaving. Same thing in your data. Come back immediately." That night, as Elena packed her equipment, the ship's captain reported that all the seabirds that normally followed their vessel had disappeared. The waters around them, usually teeming with life, had gone eerily quiet. Standing on the deck, under a sky full of stars, Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ocean breeze. Whatever signal was driving the animals away was growing stronger, and it was coming from directly beneath them, from the darkest depths where humans had barely explored. She clutched her data drive, knowing the patterns recorded there might be the only clue to what was awakening below. Something ancient, something that every living creature except humans could sense, something that was about to change their world forever. By summer, what started as strange news reports had become a global emergency. Supermarket shelves emptied as crops failed across the world. Without bees and other insects to pollinate plants, farmers watched helplessly as their fields produced less and less. Fish markets closed as the oceans emptied. Meat became scarce, then unavailable, as livestock broke free from their enclosures by the thousands. "We need to face facts," said the tired-looking UN Secretary General on a worldwide broadcast. "This isn't just a wildlife crisis anymore. This is a threat to human survival." People adapted as best they could. Community gardens sprang up in cities. Scientists worked around the clock on artificial pollination systems. But it wasn't enough. Food riots broke out in major cities. Some governments imposed martial law to maintain order. In coastal villages of Pakistan, fisherman Amir Khalid became an unlikely internet sensation. Using his old smartphone, he recorded something no scientist had managed to capture: massive schools of deep-sea creatures moving together near the surface. Fish that normally lived hundreds of meters down now swam alongside surface species, all heading in the same direction. My father and his father before him were fishermen, Amir told a reporter who had traveled to his village. The sea gives us life. But now, it's like the sea itself is running away. Military vessels tracking the phenomenon detected even stranger movements. Classified sonar readings showed massive disturbances from the ocean floor, entire ecosystems relocating, as if fleeing from something below. When these reports leaked online, conspiracy theories exploded. A grassroots network of amateur wildlife trackers formed online, sharing observations and plotting migration patterns. Their conclusion was undeniable. Every species was moving, away from the deep ocean trenches. Something below was driving them away. Dr. Elena Reyes, now back from her Pacific expedition, fought through government bureaucracy to get her findings heard. These aren't random vibrations, she insisted during a closed-door meeting with science advisors. They follow patterns, mathematical sequences. There's intelligence behind them. Her warning fell on deaf ears until birds began their exodus. It happened almost overnight. The skies emptied across entire regions. Birdwatchers in North America woke to eerie silence, where dawn choruses had been. European storks abandoned their ancient migration routes. Even captive birds became frantic, injuring themselves trying to escape their cages. Without birds to control insect populations, new problems emerged. Mosquito-borne illnesses spread rapidly. Crop-eating insects multiplied unchecked. Agricultural systems that had survived the pollinator collapse now faced new threats. People looked to the sky with unease. The absence of birds felt profoundly wrong, like a warning sign everyone could see but no one could decode. An underground shelter in Colorado became command central for the newly formed biological crisis team. Scientists from various fields gathered there, away from public panic to share findings. "We've been arrogant," Dr. Reyes told the assembled team as they reviewed global data. She pulled up her seismic readings alongside animal migration maps. The patterns aligned perfectly. Every other species on this planet understands what's happening. They share some connection, some sense we've lost or never had. As night fell, the scientists stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. The stars shone brightly in a sky no longer crossed by birds. In the distance, they could see the faint headlights of vehicles streaming away from coastal cities, humans belatedly following the example of every other living thing. "Whatever's coming," whispered a biologist, "we're the only ones still here to face it." The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. Dr. Reyes had been working for 36 hours straight, comparing brain scans of the few animal specimens her team had managed to capture before they fled. Her eyes burned from staring at screens. Coffee cups piled around her like a miniature city. "This can't be right," she murmured, rubbing her eyes. "Run it again." Her assistant, a young neuroscientist who hadn't slept much either, nodded and restarted the analysis. The results came back identical. "Every single one of them has it," Dr. Reyes said, tapping the screen. "Dogs, ravens, mice, frogs, even the fish. Look at this neural pathway. It's like an extra sense we never knew existed." The discovery spread through the scientific community like wildfire. Animals weren't just fleeing randomly, they were responding to a signal detected through a specialized bundle of neurons that humans simply didn't possess. An ancient evolutionary pathway that had somehow bypassed human development. "We're like colorblind people in a world where every other species sees color," explained Dr. Reyes on a secure government call. "They're sensing something we're completely blind to." At a military base in Nevada, analysts were puzzling over something else entirely. Satellite imagery had captured strange formations in the deepest parts of the ocean, structures that shouldn't exist 11 kilometers down, structures that seemed to be growing. When the two teams shared findings, the pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. The underwater imagery was classified immediately. The UN Security Council convened an emergency session behind closed doors. Leaders emerged looking ashen-faced, refusing to answer questions from increasingly desperate reporters. In the underground research facility, now expanded to house hundreds of scientists, Dr. Reyes studied the satellite images with growing dread. The structures didn't match any known biological pattern. They weren't mineral formations either. They looked engineered. Massive shapes spreading across the ocean floor like vast cities being unearthed after a long burial. "They're not coming from space," she told the Joint Scientific Task Force. "They've been here all along, under the ocean floor, dormant." A geologist from Australia cleared his throat. "The oldest rocks on Earth's surface are about 4 billion years old. But there's a period, we call it the late heavy bombardment, when the planet was basically being reshaped by meteor impacts. If an advanced species existed before that, the room fell silent as the implications sank in. So they were here first," whispered someone, "long before us. Privately obtained core samples from the ocean floor near the structures contained fossilized remains of cells unlike anything in Earth's known biology. Carbon dating put them at over 3 billion years old. Further analysis revealed they weren't dead, just dormant, and now they were waking up." In the cafeteria that night, a biologist from India shared a disturbing thought. What if humans evolved without that neural pathway for a reason? What if we were meant to be blind to them? Nobody had an answer, but as they watched footage of the massive shapes pulsing beneath the ocean, some began to wonder if humanity's supposed evolutionary advantage, our big brains that had conquered the planet, might actually be our greatest vulnerability. Every other species knew to run from what was coming. Only humans remained, trying to understand a threat they couldn't naturally sense. Outside the facility, a few captured birds thrashed in their reinforced cages. Their brains showed intense activity in the mysterious neural pathway. They knew something was coming, something they recognized on a genetic level, something that had perhaps been here before, when mammals were still small creatures scurrying between dinosaur feet. Dr. Reyes stared at the satellite feed, watching enormous shapes shift in the deepest darkness of the ocean. "They're not just waking up," she said quietly. "They're coming home." It happened near dawn on a small uninhabited island in the Pacific. A fishing vessel passing nearby captured the first footage, shaky, distant images of something enormous, breaking the surface. The video cut off abruptly as the boat's electronics failed. 3 hours later, military satellites confirmed what survivors described in terrified radio transmissions before they too went silent. They had arrived. The creatures defied easy description. Some witnesses called them living mountains. Others described them as buildings that breathed. Massive structures, part organic, part something else, rose from the sea, their surfaces shifting with patterns that hurt the eyes to look at. They moved with deliberate purpose, neither fast nor slow but unstoppable. Within hours, every electronic device within 50 miles of the emergence point failed. Cell phones died, navigation systems crashed, military communications went dark. Scientists later determined the entities emitted powerful electromagnetic pulses, perhaps as a form of communication among themselves. 6 nations sent naval forces to confront the unknown threat. What happened next was pieced together from distant observations and the few ships that managed to retreat. Missiles seemed to pass through the entities without effect. Artillery shells detonated against their surfaces without leaving marks. Aircraft reported instrument failure the closer they got, many crashing into the sea. By nightfall, 3 more emergence points had been confirmed, near remote atolls in the South Pacific, each one larger than the last. Civilian evacuations from coastal regions began, creating chaos on inland highways. "It's like they're testing us," a Navy commander told his superiors via satellite phone from a ship maintaining a safe distance. "They're learning what we can do, but they're not really fighting back yet. It's like they don't see us as a threat at all." Behind closed doors, world leaders received classified briefings that the public never saw. The hard truth: Earth's militaries had no effective weapons against these entities. The entities' structures appeared to be partly biological, but unlike any cellular organization known to science, both organic and synthetic, ancient yet technologically advanced beyond human understanding. In emergency sessions at the UN, accusations flew between nations. China blamed American biological experiments. Russia accused Western powers of secret weapons tests. Smaller nations demanded to know what the major powers weren't telling them. The truth, that these were Earth's first dominant species returning. After billions of years, remained known only to a select few. Dr. Elena Reyes was flown to a forward observation post on a still safe Pacific island. Through specialized equipment, she studied the entities' movements and the patterns of their electromagnetic emissions. "They're systematic," she reported. "They're establishing beachheads at precise intervals. This isn't random. They're following a plan they've had for a very long time." As the entities began moving inland on several islands, a pattern emerged. They altered landscapes as they advanced, transforming environments through methods no one understood. Plant life changed color and structure. Water bodies shifted chemistry. It was as if they were terraforming, or rather returning the Earth to conditions they found familiar. Most disturbing was their apparent indifference to human presence. When military personnel failed to evacuate one small island in time, survivors reported that the entities simply moved around them, neither attacking nor communicating. It was the ultimate insult. Humans weren't even important enough to acknowledge. At the research facility, Dr. Reyes made another chilling discovery. The electromagnetic pulses weren't just disrupting communications. They matched the exact frequency of the signals detected in the animal brain pathway that humans lacked. "They're not talking to us because they can't," she realized. "Their natural communication is through a channel we physically cannot perceive." As night fell over the Pacific, satellite imagery showed the entities continuing their inexorable advance. On screens around the world, humanity watched with growing dread as Earth's original masters reclaimed territory that, from their perspective, had only temporarily been occupied by these strange deaf creatures called humans. The fall of San Francisco marked a turning point. For weeks, people had watched the entities advance across the Pacific, hoping somehow they would stop. They didn't. The Golden Gate Bridge collapsed not from an attack, but simply from the entity's presence distorting the metal. Millions fled inland, joining the greatest human migration in history. 3 days later, Sydney fell, then Tokyo, Shanghai, Manila. Each coastal metropolis emptied as the massive beings emerged from the seas, transforming everything they touched. In Maidisai, a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, the most unlikely gathering in human history took place. American generals sat beside Russian commanders. Chinese scientists worked alongside Taiwanese engineers. Iranian and Israeli diplomats hammered out resource-sharing agreements. "We have one advantage," said the American president, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Every other species ran away. We stayed to fight." The Russian president nodded, his usual stern expression replaced with grim determination. "For the first time, all humanity faces the same enemy. Today, there are no Russians, no Americans, only humans. One by one, every world leader signed the United Earth Defense Pact, pooling all military and scientific resources into a single force. Old conflicts were set aside. Border disputes became meaningless when borders themselves were under threat. Meanwhile, Dr. Reyes made a breakthrough. Working with a captured entity fragment, a small piece broken off during a naval engagement, her team discovered something unexpected. "They're not invincible," she announced to the assembled leaders. "They emit these electromagnetic pulses, but they're also sensitive to certain frequencies. Specific combinations seem to disrupt their cellular cohesion." The revelation sparked the first real hope in weeks. Unlike animals, humans couldn't detect the entity's communications. But because of that same limitation, humans could tolerate sound frequencies that disrupted the entities without being affected themselves. "It's like having immunity to a sonic weapon," explained Dr. Reyes. "Every other species evolved to sense these frequencies. We didn't. Now that's our advantage." In underground factories across the world, production began on frequency generators. Engineers worked non-stop, converting everything from concert speakers to naval sonar systems into weapons. For the first time, humanity had a fighting chance. The United Earth Defense Force mobilized with breathtaking speed. Old enemies became combat units fighting side by side. Former nuclear missile silos were repurposed to house the frequency technology. Every available aircraft was fitted with sound projectors. "We're not running," said a young lieutenant to her international squad as they prepared for deployment. "Every rabbit, every wolf, every bird knew to flee. But we're standing our ground. That's what makes us human." The first counterattack launched from the Alps, where European forces had established a defensive line. The frequency generators mounted on modified tanks produced no sound humans could hear, but their effect on the approaching entity was immediate and dramatic. Its massive form shuddered. Parts of its structure began to lose cohesion. It retreated. News of the success spread like wildfire through human strongholds. In the Andes, a similar attack drove back entities advancing from the South Pacific. African forces reported success using the technology in defense of highland regions. For the first time since the entities emerged, they stopped advancing. In the command center, world leaders watched the updated battle maps with cautious optimism. Humanity had lost the coasts and many island nations, but the counteroffensive was holding the line at major mountain ranges and inland areas. They expected us to run like the animals did, Dr. Reyes said quietly, watching the tactical displays. They weren't prepared for a species that would stand and fight. The war was far from over. The entities still controlled the oceans and coastlines. Millions had died in the initial emergence, but humanity had found its strength in unity, turning our unique evolutionary path, our inability to sense what every other species could, into an unexpected weapon. As dawn broke over a changed world, the United Earth Defense Force prepared for the greatest battle in human history. Not just for territory or resources, but for our right to exist on a planet where we were never meant to be the dominant species. The mountain facility rumbled with activity as dawn broke over what remained of human territory. Engineers made final adjustments to massive speakers aimed toward the valleys below. Scientists checked readings on equipment cobbled together from parts salvaged from abandoned cities. Soldiers from a dozen nations checked their gear, faces grim but determined. "Today we take back what's ours," announced General Chen over the base's communication system. No one cheered, they were beyond that kind of optimism, but backs straightened and jaws set with resolve. Operation Soundwave launched simultaneously from 7 continents. The strategy was deceptively simple. Emit precisely calibrated frequency combinations that disrupted the entity's biological structures while leaving humans unaffected. The execution proved far more complex. Along the Rocky Mountain defensive line, massive speaker arrays powered up. The air shimmered, though no sound was audible to human ears. In the valleys below, the advancing entities faltered. Their massive forms rippled like disturbed water. Some began to retreat. Others fragmented, pieces of their structure dissolving into the ground. In orbit, hastily modified satellites targeted energy patterns detected on the Earth's surface, amplifying heavy ground-based frequency attacks. For the first time, humanity could observe the entity's reaction on a global scale, and it was working. "They're falling back in Australia," reported a communications officer, voice tight with controlled excitement. Same in the Andes. African Command confirms successful defense of the highlands. Small victories multiplied. Special Forces units equipped with portable frequency generators reclaimed abandoned towns. Each square kilometer retaken was celebrated like a continent won. The cost remained staggering. The coastlines of every continent lay transformed beyond recognition, alien landscapes where familiar cities once stood. Millions had died in the initial emergence, millions more during the desperate evacuations. But humanity surprised even itself with its resilience. In refugee camps, children dismantled electronics, old radios, phones, speakers, and reassembled them into crude but effective frequency emitters that could protect small areas. Communities organized neighborhood defense networks, sharing resources and standing watch. Old enemies worked side by side without question or hesitation. "My grandfather fought your grandfather," a Pakistani soldier told his Indian counterpart, as they calibrated equipment. Seems pretty stupid now, doesn't it? The food crisis spurred new innovation. Without animals to provide protein, people turned to hydroponic gardens built in abandoned subway tunnels and underground parking structures. Scientists developed enhanced fungi and algae that could grow without sunlight. The human diet changed dramatically, but people adapted. Dr. Reyes rarely slept anymore. Her team had expanded, occupying an entire wing of the mountain facility. They dissected captured entity fragments, learning more with each examination. They're not just biological, she explained to military leaders. They're biomechanical, part living tissue, part something like technology. All integrated at a cellular level, they function as a collective consciousness, communicating through the electromagnetic spectrum. Understanding the enemy improved. Defense strategies. Targeting their communication networks proved as effective as attacking their physical forms. For the first time, humans weren't just reacting. They were planning, adapting, fighting back with growing effectiveness. In what had once been Central Europe, a daring raid led by multinational forces reclaimed a small city. As troops secured the area, local civilians emerged from hiding, thin and traumatized but alive. They had survived for months in the shadow of the entities, moving constantly to avoid detection. "We never gave up," an elderly woman told the soldiers who found her group hiding in a collapsed subway station. "We kept thinking, someone will come. Humans won't abandon each other." At the Mountain Command Center, the map of Earth showed a new reality. The blue areas marking human-controlled territory had stopped shrinking. In some regions, they were expanding again, pushing back the red zones of entity control. It wasn't victory. Not yet. The entities still held the oceans and coastlines. Resources remained scarce. The battle might last years, even decades. But humanity had found something unexpected in this existential fight. Unity, innovation, and a fierce determination that even Earth's original masters had not anticipated. As night fell, Dr. Reyes stepped outside the facility for a rare moment of fresh air. The stars shone in a sky still empty of birds. The world had fundamentally changed, but looking at the lights of the human settlement spreading through the valley below, she allowed herself, for the first time in months, to feel something like hope. The mountain rain drummed steadily on the reinforced dome of the research facility as Dr. Reyes hunched over the examination table. Before her lay something unprecedented, a fragment of one of the entities, nearly intact, recovered after a successful frequency attack in what used to be Colorado. Unlike previous samples that degraded quickly, this one remained stable, its cellular structure still active though contained. Under the harsh laboratory lights, its surface shifted with patterns that seemed almost like writing. "There's something different about this one," Dr. Reyes murmured, adjusting the scanning equipment. "The structure is more complex, almost like a brain center." The breakthrough came at 3:17 a.m., when a junior researcher noticed unusual electromagnetic patterns emanating from the sample. They weren't random. They repeated in sequences too orderly to be anything but deliberate. "It's trying to communicate," Dr. Reyes realized, her exhaustion forgotten. "Quick, bring the pattern recognition software." By dawn, the team had established a rudimentary translation matrix. What they learned changed everything. The entities weren't invaders. They were returning home. 3 billion years ago, they had been Earth's first intelligent species, evolving in the planet's primordial oceans. When a massive asteroid strike threatened their extinction, they retreated deep beneath the ocean floor, entering a form of suspended animation. Before their retreat, they modified early life forms with neural pathways designed to sense their eventual return, a genetic beacon passed down through evolution to almost every animal species. They expected to be welcomed back, Dr. Reyes explained to grim-faced military leaders hours later. The animals fled because they recognized the entities as the planet's original masters. But humans evolved from a branch that somehow lost that neural pathway. We're essentially an evolutionary accident. The revelation split humanity's unified front. In the refugee camp outside the facility, heated debates erupted. Some argued that if these were Earth's original inhabitants, humans had no right to fight them. Others maintained that 3 billion years of absence surrendered any prior claim. Earth was human now. "They've killed millions of us," shouted a general during an emergency council meeting. "I don't care if they were here first. They're trying to exterminate us now." "Because we attacked them," countered a diplomat. "They don't even see us as intelligent. To them, we're anomalies. Creatures that should have run with the rest of the animals." Dr. Reyes found herself in an impossible position. Military leaders pressed her for weaknesses to exploit, ways to destroy the entities more efficiently. Yet her scientific conscience pulled her toward understanding, communication, possible coexistence. In her private lab, away from the arguments, she continued working with the entity fragment. Through painstaking effort, her team expanded the translation matrix. The entity's electromagnetic patterns revealed more of their history, their biology, their purpose. They're terraforming the coastlines back to their original state, she told her closest colleagues. They're not trying to destroy us specifically. They're restoring the planet to conditions they need to survive. Our deaths are incidental. That night, as debate raged through the facility, Dr. Reyes made a decision that could change the course of the conflict. She modified the frequency generators to transmit rather than disrupt, to speak rather than attack. If humans couldn't sense the entities naturally, perhaps technology could bridge the gap. We need to try, she told her doubtful team. Otherwise, this becomes a war of extinction, theirs or ours, and I'm not sure we'd win. Outside, in what remained of human territory, people continued their desperate fight for survival. Families huddled in mountain shelters. Soldiers manned defensive perimeters. Engineers built increasingly powerful weapons. None of them yet knew that the enemy they fought wasn't an invader at all, but the original inheritors of Earth, returned after an absence so long that the world had forgotten them. Dr. Reyes stared at the communication device her team had built, her finger hovering over the activation switch. If it worked, it could open dialogue with beings humans had been fighting for months. If it failed, it could reveal human positions and strategies to an implacable enemy. We have to try, she whispered, and pressed the switch. The communication lab was technically off-limits after midnight, but Dr. Reyes had overridden the security protocols. Her small team worked in near silence, the only sounds the soft clicking of keyboards and the hum of the modified frequency generator. "Are you sure about this?" asked her assistant, voice barely above a whisper. "If anyone finds out, then we'll deal with that when it happens," Dr. Reyes replied, adjusting the final settings. "But we can't keep fighting a war we don't understand." The makeshift communication device looked cobbled together because it was. Parts salvaged from military equipment, research tools, even ordinary speakers, all wired to a central console. Its purpose? To translate human language into the electromagnetic frequencies used by the entities, and vice versa. "Ready?" Dr. Reyes asked, looking at each team member in turn. They nodded, faces tense but determined. She took a deep breath and activated the system. At first, nothing happened. The screens showed outgoing signals, but no response. Minutes stretched painfully. As they waited, then the sensors lit up. Something was responding. The first communications were basic, simple patterns establishing a baseline for translation. The team worked feverishly, adjusting algorithms, refining the interface. By dawn, they had established rudimentary two-way communication. What the entities shared changed everything. They called themselves the Primus. 3 billion years ago, they had evolved in Earth's ancient oceans, developing a collective consciousness and advanced bioengineering. They had flourished until a massive asteroid, larger than the one that later killed the dinosaurs, threatened to make Earth uninhabitable. Unable to leave the planet, they retreated deep beneath the ocean floor, entering a form of suspended animation that would last until the planet recovered. Before their retreat, they genetically modified primitive life forms with two crucial traits: the neural pathway to sense their eventual return, and the programming to prepare the Earth's surface for their reawakening. They engineered evolution. Dr. Reyes explained to her astonished team as the translations became clearer. Animals were meant to be their caretakers, maintaining the planet until they returned. The Primus had expected to find a world where their modified creatures had prepared the way. When they began to awaken, they sent the signal that activated the ancient genetic programming, a call to come home. The animal exodus wasn't fear, Dr. Reyes realized. It was obedience to programming billions of years old. But humans had evolved from a branch of mammals that lost the neural pathway, a mutation that allowed independent development but left them unable to perceive the Primus or their signal. To the Primus, humans were an evolutionary anomaly, unplanned and unexpected. "They don't understand us," Dr. Reyes told her team. They thought all Earth's creatures would recognize them as the original masters. When we fought back instead of fleeing, they assumed we were defective or dangerous. As dawn broke over the mountains, Dr. Reyes made the decision to reveal their communication breakthrough to the world leadership. She knew the risks. Many would see this as treason, collaborating with the enemy. Others would dismiss the findings as delusion or deception. The emergency council meeting erupted into chaos when she presented her findings. "You've been talking to them? Without authorization?" The military commander's face flushed with anger. "They were here first," Dr. Reyes replied calmly. 3 billion years before the first human, they engineered the life that eventually became us. "That doesn't give them the right to take back the planet now," shouted a government official. "We've built civilizations, cultures. This is our home now?" "And it's the only home they have too," Dr. Reyes countered. "They can't leave Earth any more than we can." The debate raged for hours. Some called for Dr. Reyes's arrest. Others wanted to use the communication channel to gather intelligence for more effective attacks. Her few voices supported attempting genuine dialogue. In the end, a fragile consensus emerged. Dr. Reyes would continue communication under strict oversight, seeking to understand the Primus without committing humanity to any course of action. That night, as she prepared for the next contact, Dr. Reyes stared at her reflection in the darkened lab window. She saw the exhaustion in her eyes, felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She was now the primary bridge between two intelligent species, one ancient beyond comprehension, one young and fiercely determined to survive. "We need to find a way for both of us to call Earth home," she whispered to herself, and turned back to the communication device. The conference room had once been a luxury hotel ballroom before the world changed. Now it housed the most unusual peace talks in human history. On one side sat world leaders, generals, and scientists. On the other, a containment chamber holding a specially modified environment where 3 Primus representatives pulsed with shifting patterns of light and color. Between them stood Dr. Reyes with the translation device, her voice steady, despite her exhaustion. For 6 weeks, she had shuttled between human and Primus negotiators, explaining each to the other, finding common ground where none seemed possible. "They don't breathe air as we do," she explained to the human delegation. "They don't see or hear as we do, but they understand territory, resources, and survival. Those are our starting points. The treaty that emerged wasn't perfect, no treaty ever is, but it was remarkable. The Primus would reclaim the deep oceans, their ancient home territories. Humans would maintain control of continental landmasses. Coastal regions would become shared zones, carefully managed by both species." When the human delegation head and Primus representative finalized the agreement, people around the world watched in stunned silence. The war that had seemed destined to end with one species extinct instead concluded with an unprecedented pact. "Not enemies, not yet friends," said the UN Secretary-General during the broadcast, "but fellow travelers on the only planet either of us can call home." Implementation began immediately. The Primus modified their electromagnetic signals to be less disruptive to human technology. Humans adjusted their frequency weapons to target only specific threats, not Primus communication. The constant background hum of conflict that had defined life for months began to fade. Most surprising was the return of the animals. As the hostile frequencies diminished, wildlife cautiously reappeared. First came insects, then birds, finally mammals. They maintained distance from both human settlements and Primus territories, establishing a new ecological balance. Dr. Reyes watched a flock of geese fly overhead, the first she'd seen in almost a year, as she prepared for her next mission. Around her, a specialized research vessel was being loaded with equipment for the first joint human-Primus scientific exploration. "We still don't fully understand each other," she told her team during their final briefing, "but we've found something rare. 2 intelligent species willing to learn." The research vessel departed from a newly established coastal interface zone, where modified human structures existed alongside Primus formations. Their destination, a deep ocean trench, where ancient Primus technology remained from before their long dormancy on board. Human scientists worked with Primus communicators through specially designed interfaces. the knowledge exchange transformed human understanding of biology, collective consciousness, and planetary evolution. In return, the IT Primus learned about individual creativity, rapid adaptation, and the unique human willingness to face rather than flee from threats. They're fascinated by how we think, Dr. Reyes noted in her journal. Our individual minds seem as strange to them as their collective consciousness is to us, but the differences create possibilities neither would have discovered alone. 6. Months after the treaty, the first human Primus collaborative community opened in what had once been New Zealand. Humans lived in surface structures, while Primus inhabited connected underwater environments. Between them, a remarkable exchange flourished of ideas, of technologies, of ways of perceiving reality. Children adapted fastest, as they always do. In schools across the world, human children learned to interpret Primus communication patterns, while young Primus collectives studied human languages and customs. A generation was growing up that would never know a world where the two species weren't aware of each other. Dr. Reyes stood on the observation deck of the research vessel, watching the sunset over a changed Earth. Beside her, a Primus communication pod pulsed with patterns she was gradually learning to recognize as expressions of contemplation. "We almost destroyed each other," she said, knowing the translation system would convey her words. "Every other species fled when they sensed your return. Only humans stayed and fought." The Primus response translated on her screen. "That resistance forced us to recognize you as equals. Had you fled like the others, we would never have learned what you were capable of." In coastal cities around the world, reconstruction had begun. New architectures emerged that could accommodate both species. The devastation of war slowly transformed into something neither humans nor Primus could have created alone. Humanity had not only survived an extinction-level threat, but had negotiated terms with beings who had evolved billions of years before the first humans walked the Earth. Not through running away, not merely through fighting, but through that uniquely human combination of resistance and understanding, conflict and communication. Earth now belonged to two intelligent species, each with their own path, their own strengths, learning to share a planet neither could abandon.